We already talked about the value added tax in another chapter on this channel, but today we're going to dive a little bit deeper into the so-called value added tax, short VAT. So, welcome back to another video here on GTax. My name is Roland Elias and I'm German tax advisor. And yeah, let's just dive into the so-called value added tax in Germany and give it a little explanation. The value added tax. What is it and how does it work in Germany? So, the value added tax, also called in Germany Mehrwertsteuer or Umsatzsteuer, is a consumption tax which is added to most of the goods and services. For example, you buy a smartphone, there is value added tax on it. You buy, for example, something to drink, water, there is value added tax in it, in the money you give to the businesses. The value added tax is paid by the end consumer. This means the business who you buy the goods and services from is just collecting the value added tax on behalf of the government and then sending it via transfer to the tax office. The tax is included in almost all retail prices in Germany. So it's not like in the US where you have the price and there's the local tax on it. No, that's already included because it's the rule in Germany. Businesses can reclaim already the VAT they pay by their own. So if you're a business and say, hey, for example, I will buy a smartphone, for example, and there are 19% of value added tax in it, I can reclaim it as a business, but not as a private person or end consumer. The VAT is governed by the German VAT Act, its so-called Umsatzsteuergesetz, and the already known EU regulations. So what VAT rates are there in Germany, and are there standards, are they reduced, and what do you have to know about it? So the standard rate in Germany is 19%. For example, let's just say, it's not the truth, but this smartphone, this Apple iPhone, will cost for the business, for example, 1,000 euro. So you don't pay at the end, if you're a private end consumer, not 1,000 euro, you pay 1,119 euro to buy this smartphone. But the value added tax, 190 euros in the 1,190 euros, is collected by the business and sent to the government. Then there is another reduced rate, it's the 7% rate. This applies to essentially like goods like groceries, books and newspapers, for example. This is in some cases it is reduced, but normally it's always 19%. But there are also some cases with another value added tax. In the international concept, you always talk about a zero tax or a 0% value added tax in Germany, but that's not true. It's tax free, but in the international concept, it's 0% tax. This is, for example, in intra-EU or export services sales, or for example, in some health medical services, or for example rent or education or something like this, there's the VAT exempt. So for example, already said, standard is 19%, reduced is 7%, then there are some which are tax-free or 0% VAT. And the most important thing is that rates are always included in the advertised price, the so-called brutto price. This is what you see on the papers if you go into the shop and say, oh, okay, it says 1,190 euros. Then this is the gross price, the advertised price, and this is the brutto price. So, but how does it affect everyday purchases? For example, you don't have to care about anything about VAT in Germany because it's already included in everything you buy. Even if it's 19, 7, or it's not included if you have around about the 0%. But there are some others, special times for agriculture, but we're not going to dive into this. So, for example, if you have a receipt, for example, you bought Coca-Cola with a meal or something like this, or going out for dinner, or something, you have a paper where it says, okay, there's a price, there's net, there's the gross, and then there's the value added tax. So it's already included, you don't have to do anything about it, you just have to pay it. But there are some specialties, and we already talked about this. Every business has usually to charge the 7% value added tax, or the specialties for agriculture. But there's some specialty for small business owners. It's called the Kleinunternehmerregelung. It's the small business rule. This says if you're under a revenue of 25,000 euros in 2025, that means you don't have to pay these, or you don't have to take the money and send to the local tax office, because you don't have to write the 90% on your receipt. But this is not the easy way, or it's not almost not the best way for this, because there are some bad times with this, because you're not allowed to for example, get a refund of your, or a VAT exempt if you're like a business and buying something for your business. Then this is not allowed with the so-called reclaim VAT we talked about. That's not if you're a Kleinunternehmer. But in this case, you have to know it's the revenue, it's not the profit. That means everything you get from your customers, the income, 25 euros, that is the stop line, and not the profit deducted by expenses. The most important things is to know it's the brutto price, it's called gross price inclusive VAT, the net price, it's netto price excluded VAT, then Mehrwertsteuer and Umsatzsteuer are used interchangeably in Germany. The EU only knows the Mehrwertsteuer. It's more likely the VAT, the value added tax. For example, Umsatzsteuer is translated with revenue tax. You can say something like this. In the other way around, there's already the Vorsteuer. It's the so-called input tax. This is the VAT that can be reclaimed by businesses. For example, as I told, I'm a business owner, I'll buy a smartphone, they're 1,190 euros, and I can reclaim 190 euros from the local tax office. Then there's a specialty with so-called reverse charge. This is a special thing between B2P and cross-border transactions in the EU. So the recipient pays the VAT, but he already don't have to pay it because he can reclaim the input tax, the VAT. Then there are just two more informations you have to know. It's the Steuer-ID versus EU Umsatzsteuer-ID. It's the personal tax ID versus the EU VAT ID. For businesses, you need the EU VAT ID. It's the EU value added tax ID, for example. And the other one we already talked about is the personal tax ID. It's just for you as a person, and the EU VAT ID is for your business. So these are the most important informations you have to know about the value added tax system in Germany. And you have some other questions, just keep it up in the comments below. Wish you a happy day.